Imagine this. You're sitting at your desk. Another day. The room is quiet but not peaceful. More muted. The kind of quiet that buzzes beneath the surface. Your eyes drift to the clock. You're not in pain. You're not in danger. But something inside you feels off. You've done everything you were told to. Played the part. Checked the boxes. Smiled when expected. Repeated the mantras. Work hard. Stay busy. Be grateful. And still, you feel empty. You open your phone. Scroll past a flood of curated perfection, motivational quotes. People who seem to be thriving in the very system that's slowly draining you. So you wonder, is it just me? Am I the problem? But what if you're not? What if the unease you feel isn't a flaw, but a signal? What if the low hum of anxiety isn't a malfunction, but a reaction? What if your discontent isn't evidence that you're broken, but that something around you is? Here's the paradox. We live in the most advanced, connected and prosperous time in human history, and yet we are more medicated, distracted, anxious and disoriented than ever before. We have more tools, more comforts, more information, and still a gnawing emptiness persists. Why? Why, with all our progress, does fulfillment feel further away? Maybe the question isn't, what's wrong with me? Maybe the real question is, who benefits from me staying broken? Because what if you were trained to feel this way? What if your disconnection wasn't an accident, but a product? What if society needs you just wounded enough to keep obeying, never questioning? These are not conspiracy theories. These are subtle truths buried under layers of normalcy. And once you begin to see the system, not from within, but from outside, it changes everything. But before we talk about breaking free, we need to understand how the trap was built. It starts early. Before you can form complex thoughts, before you know what authenticity means, you're absorbing rules. Not overt laws, but unspoken ones. You learn to raise your hand, to sit still, to color inside the lines. You learn which parts of you are praised and which are punished. Slowly, your wildness is replaced with performance, not because you are bad, but because you are trainable. This is where it begins, not with cruelty, but with conditioning. Carl Jung called it the creation of the persona, the mask we wear to survive in a social world. It's necessary, he said, but dangerous when mistaken for our true self. And society is built on the illusion that the mask is the person, that politeness equals goodness, that obedience equals intelligence, that productivity equals value. You adjust as a result. Adaptation then becomes identity. When you're exhausted, you learn to grin, to claim to be all right when you're not, to rationalize away your anger, in the name of strength, to repress your grief. And it gets easier to handle every time you conceal a part of yourself, more suitable, more lucrative. Often referred to be the philosopher of pessimism, Arthur Schopenhauer held that people are motivated by an uncontrollably restless hunger that never completely goes away. That very principle is exploited in modern culture. More status, likes, hustle, and consumerism are all constant sources of fuel for the will. The problem is that it never leaves you feeling satisfied. No, it cannot, because you wouldn't pursue it if it did. Additionally, you stop buying if you stop chasing. You cease to fit in. This is the hidden machine, a world designed not for your healing, but for your fragmentation. One where mental health is medicalized, not explored. One where attention is monetized. One where burnout is normalized and questioning the system is radical. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World didn't predict a society ruled by force. He envisioned one ruled by pleasure, sedation, and distraction. A world where people are not forced into compliance but lulled into it. And that's exactly what we have. You are not told to obey. You are nudged, taught to self-monitor, to smile for the algorithm, to internalize the expectations so deeply the system no longer needs to enforce them. You enforce them on yourself. The result? You forget what you were before the training began. You confuse approval with peace. You confuse control with safety. And beneath it all, your real self waits, not broken, just buried. When something breaks loudly, people notice. But when something breaks quietly over the years, through habits, through silence, it becomes invisible, acceptable, normal. And that's what happened to you. You didn't collapse in one tragic moment. You eroded, gradually, invisibly, until the ache became background noise, until the numbness became the baseline. This is the most dangerous kind of damage, the kind that becomes your default. You wake up tired, scroll through noise, chase goals that no longer matter, smile on cue, call it life, but it's not living, it's maintaining, and that maintenance has consequences far deeper than you realize. Let's name them. Anxiety becomes your operating system. You're always on, not because you want to be, but because stillness feels like drowning. Quiet exposes the void, so you fill it with content, with caffeine, with chaos. Anything but presence. Your relationships become transactions. You mirror what others expect. You perform intimacy without vulnerability. You fear being seen too clearly because you've forgotten who's underneath. Your worth becomes external. A follower count, a paycheck, a title. You measure your humanity in numbers, never asking who wrote the measuring stick in the first place. But perhaps the most tragic consequence is this: you lose your capacity for truth, not because you don't care, but because the truth threatens the persona you've built. So you self-censor, you laugh when you want to cry, you say yes when your whole body screams no. You forget that honesty isn't dangerous, it's healing. But the system doesn't reward truth, it rewards functioning, and as long as you function, no one asks if you're actually alive. Meanwhile, the world profits off your quiet discontent. Apps keep you hooked. Brands sell you solutions to problems they created. Institutions reward the appearance of stability over the reality of wholeness. And you, brilliant, sensitive, intuitive, you are told to be realistic, which really means stay in line, stay numb, stay predictable. But a predictable person is a lost person, because the truth is never predictable. It disrupts, it demands, it awakens. And awakening is exactly what the system fears. So it buries you in tasks, it keeps you scrolling, it convinces you that rest is laziness, that rebellion is foolish, that joy is indulgent. And slowly you stop looking in the mirror, not because you hate yourself, but because you don't recognize who's staring back. Rebellion isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like turning off your notifications. Sometimes it's crying without shame. Sometimes it's walking away from a life that almost fits, but still suffocates. Because the real rebellion isn't against the world. It's against the version of you the world trained you to become. They taught you that healing is optional, that sensitivity is a weakness, that success means sacrifice, of sleep, of self, of soul. They lied. But freedom doesn't start with vengeance, it starts with remembering. Remembering that stillness isn't laziness, that joy isn't indulgent, that boundaries aren't betrayal, they are protection. You want to know what real power looks like? It's saying no without guilt. It's resting without permission. It's a feeling without filtering. It's waking up and choosing to live on your own terms. But to do that, you must first reclaim what was taken from you. You've spent years turning outward, chasing approval, praise, validation. Now it's time to turn inward. Ask yourself the hard questions. What do I truly feel? What do I truly want? What have I been too afraid to admit? And when the answers begin to surface, don't judge them. Don't plan around them. Just listen. With presence, with honesty. The anger you carry, don't suppress it. It isn't toxic. It's sacred. It's the part of you that still knows something is wrong, that still believes something better is possible. Let that rage sharpen your vision. Let it burn through the scripts they taught you to recite. Let it become fuel for something truer. Break the rhythm, interrupt the trance, Go for a walk without your phone. Delete the app that devours your attention. Say no to something that exhausts your soul. These acts may seem small, but they ripple. One quiet defiance at a time, your inner world shifts. One drop at a time, you begin to rise, redefine success. What if it wasn't about accumulation? What if it meant alignment, wholeness, peace? Write your own definition. You're allowed to. You must. Because only you know what a meaningful life looks like for you. And above all, create sacred space, not a habit, not a hack, a ritual, a moment, however brief, that reconnects you to who you really are. It could be 2 minutes of stillness, a breath, a sunrise, but make it yours. That space is your anchor in a world built to keep you adrift. This isn't about perfection, it's about permission. Permission to be human, permission to question, permission to heal. Because once you reclaim your power, the system loses its grip. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. You don't have to burn it all down. You just have to stop pretending it's your home. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when you realize you were never broken. You were betrayed, not by one person, not even by one system, but by a world that taught you to abandon yourself in order to be accepted. The final truth isn't that you need to heal in order to be worthy. It's that you were always worthy, even before the healing began. You just forgot, because forgetting was safer than facing what was taken from you. But here you are, awake, and now everything changes. Not overnight, not with fireworks, but like a river, remembering how to flow after being dammed for too long. You begin to feel things again, not in fragments, not through screens, but fully. Even the pain becomes sacred because it's finally yours. You begin to see that society never had your best interests in mind, not because it hates you, but because it never truly saw you. It saw your potential as a worker, as a consumer, as a predictable piece in a grand machine. But your soul, it doesn't fit inside machines. It was made to create, to love, to grieve, to rebel, to remember. And when you do remember, when the veil lifts, it feels like being born again, not into a new life, but into the one you were always meant to live. You stop apologizing for your truth. You stop bargaining with your joy. You stop asking permission to feel, to rest, to exist. And in that wholeness, you become something dangerous, not to others, but to the illusions they worship, because a whole person cannot be seduced. They cannot be manipulated. They cannot be sold a version of themselves they no longer need. You become a mirror, and mirrors make liars uncomfortable, but you also become a lighthouse, and lighthouses don't save people. They remind them that land exists, that home is still possible, that the storm, no matter how strong, is not forever. So now you have a choice. Keep playing the role they gave you, or become the truth they feared you'd find. And if you choose truth, if you choose yourself, you'll lose things. Comfort, familiarity, even people. But what you gain is you. And that's the one thing the system can never reclaim once it's remembered. So breathe. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Feel the weight leaving your shoulders. And whisper to yourself without shame, I was never broken. I was just waiting to wake up. And now you have.